Coming on the air because music legend Dolly Parton is dead at the age of 80. She was one of the most unifying forces in American culture, a celebrity for more than 50 years.
She was childless. There was no following generation waiting for the phone call when Dolly Parton passed away on August 25, 2026, 18 months after burying her husband of 58 years. No son attending a boarding school, no flying home for the girl. The woman who created a theme park that employs over 4,000 people donated 308 million books to the world and gave away the majority of the $100 million she received from Jeff Bezos before spending a single night there. There was no direct successor to inherit it from that woman. Nevertheless, she left behind more than the majority of dynasties. This is not the account of Dolly Parton's life. We've previously heard that tale. This is not the account of her demise. Additionally, that story has already been told. This is the tale of what she left behind and who will carry it. The estimated estate is between $450 and $650 million. Over 4 million people visit this theme park annually. The Broadway musical is slated to debut in December 2026. Every month, a literacy organization continues to provide books to kids in 5 different nations. And sobriety. There was a silent deliberation about who she trusted to make the revelation that none of them had desired. This is the question that not enough people are raising. What really happens when a woman constructs something that big and leaves no offspring to inherit it? On March 3, 2025, Carl Dean passed away. He was 82. They had been wed for 58 years. A marriage that outlasted record labels, empires, and all predictions about a woman who at the age of 17 left Sevier County, Tennessee, with nothing but a guitar and a voice that seemed to already understand what grief was. Carl never conducted interviews. He was never a red carpet walker. For a living, he constructed asphalt driveways. He also cherished her. Additionally, Dolly Parton was left alone in a home that had always been designed for 2 when he passed away. She outlived him by 18 months. It took some time to process the silence that followed Dolly's death on August 25, 2026. It's not because it was unexpected, but rather because certain people feel so permanent that the world finds it difficult to adjust to their departure. She was 80 years old. The question of what she left behind seemed almost too big to be addressed in a single conversation, since she had lived a life that was so full, so purposefully giving, and so meticulously crafted for the benefit of individuals she would never directly meet. Nevertheless, this is the most straightforward version of the solution. She didn't have any biological children. Carl and she had made an attempt. One of the few things in her life that she was unable to change was the pregnancy she lost, which she discussed in interviews throughout the years with her usual candor. They decided against adopting. Rather, over the course of more than 40 years, she quietly and methodically redirected that love into the children of strangers through a program that would eventually send 308 million books to children who had never heard her sing a note, but who learned to read because she felt they should. A family was left behind by her, not the traditional sort, the type you construct when you are unable to obtain the traditional type. Financial specialists estimate the estate's value to be between $450 and $650 million, although its structure has not been made public. No will has been disclosed to the public. There are no trust documents available. What is known is that Dolly Parton prepared for this occasion for years with the same attention to detail that she applied to all of her endeavors. She did not leave things unplanned, according to the people closest to her, who have stated this in various ways and at different times. What remained, who got it, and what will happen to everything she created going forward? That is the topic of the remainder of our discussion. Every signed ticket stub and souvenir cup offered to the 4 million visitors that enter a theme park in Tennessee's Great Smoky Mountains each year bears her name. Pigeon Forge, where Dollywood is located, would not be nearly as developed as it is now. It's a big enterprise. It's not a local interest. Dollywood has been ranked among the best theme parks in the United States by a number of independent ranking agencies. This is not because it is a novelty or a nostalgia act, but rather because it is a legitimate attraction that can compete with parks supported by studios valued at hundreds of billions of dollars. During the busiest time of year, it has over 4,000 employees. Every hotel, restaurant, and gas station within 20 miles of its entry benefits from the economic activity it produces. By any reasonable standard, it is among Tennessee's most important cultural and economic resources. Additionally, Dolly Parton's share in the Dollywood Company, which comprises the theme park, as well as hotels, resort properties, and other attractions across Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, was valued at $165 million by Celebrity Net Worth. There are now no direct heirs to that number in the estate. For anyone worried about what happens to those 4,000 jobs and those 4 million visits each year, however, this is the most important element. Dollywood was never a standalone business. For many years, the Hirshand Family Entertainment Corporation, one of the biggest family-run themed attraction businesses in the U.S., has collaborated with Dollywood. Hirshand has its own operational depth, managerial infrastructure, and institutional expertise in managing a destination this size. Dolly Parton doesn't have to enter the park every morning. It depends on the staff, the systems, the brand, and the reputation, all of which are unaltered. Dollywood's doors will open tomorrow and every day after that. Changes are more subtle and more difficult to measure. There was more to Dolly Parton's connection to that park than just ownership. She went on the roller coasters. On their birthdays, she gave them birthday surprises. On its premises, she recorded prime-time Christmas specials. She wasn't a remote investor, gathering quarterly reports in silence. She was the genuine breathing embodiment of everything the park purported to stand for. From the moment they came, visitors were made to feel like neighbors by the warmth, generosity, and unique front porch gospel that originated in Tennessee. No competent management structure can duplicate it. With hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, Hirshand and the Dollywood Corporation must now decide how to preserve the founder's essence without turning her into a trademark. Parks who have previously encountered this question have responded to it in a variety of ways, and with varying outcomes. Some have inclined toward memorials akin to those found in museums. Some have increased their efforts because they believe that growth is a way to honor ambition. Some people have done both. Dolly Parton provided Dollywood with material for decades, which is an advantage. Even before she passed away, the park served as a memorial to her life. The park's Chasing Rainbows Museum, which chronicles her journey from a one-room cabin in Locust Ridge to the world stage, was already a permanent installation. Whether or not to commemorate her is not the question. How to maintain the space feeling lively instead of reverent to the point of stillness is the question. Since 4 million people still decide to attend each year, 4 million people will make that decision alongside them, and that figure is unlikely to decline in the months that follow the passing of a cherished American icon. In fact, the opposite usually occurs. Before this block continues, it is worthwhile to consider this question. When the woman whose name appears on every single package disappears, what happens to a literacy initiative that has distributed 308 million books to kids in 5 different countries? Anyone who isn't familiar with the Dolly Parton Imagination Library's actual operation is likely to assume the worst. That the checks stop without her, that the books are no longer coming in, that before the next supply arrives, the kids who were enrolled in the program last month will grow out of it. It seems sense to have that instinct. It's also incorrect. Although the Imagination Library is a Dollywood Foundation program, it was created early on to operate independently of any one funding source. It wasn't a coincidence, Dolly Parton had insight that many philanthropists never acquire. A program that is solely supported by one individual is not a program. It's an intimate gesture. Furthermore, no matter how big or genuine the gesture, it ends when the individual does. That was not what she wanted. Every aspect of the framework she created for the Imagination Library reflects that goal. In the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, and the Republic of Ireland, local affiliate programs run by civic associations, government agencies, and community organizations each have their unique funding arrangements. A local government grant may be used to support a program in a rural Appalachian county. A nationwide literacy effort may be used by a Scottish district. A regional corporate partner may provide help to a community in Queensland. The infrastructure is provided standardized and coordinated by the Dollywood Foundation. However, the financial foundation is purposefully dispersed among hundreds of separate connections. For this reason, even when Dolly wasn't actively seeking money, the program continued to exist and grow. It will survive now because of this. It is nearly impossible to take in all of the numbers surrounding the Imagination Library in one sitting. Since the program's inception in Sevier County, Tennessee, in 1995, 308 million books have been provided. It all started with the straightforward notion that every child born in her home county, regardless of family income, should get a book every month until the age of 5. One of the biggest privately financed early childhood literacy programs in the world has grown from that initial countywide program. The amount of funding it has received recently is indicative of the size of what it has grown into. Together, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce contributed $2 million to the initiative in 2022, which brought the Imagination Library to the attention of audiences who had never interacted with a youth literacy charity before and garnered international news coverage. In the same year, Dolly Parton received $100 million from Jeff Bezos via his Courage and Civility Award, which he established to recognize public individuals who pursue their objectives without purposefully causing division among others. Dolly did not retain the cash. She donated most of it to charitable causes, a sizable amount to the Imagination Library, and extra money to Tennessee's children's hospitals. Before she passed away, she returned the most of the $100 million she had received to children. It's not a footnote. The thesis is that. Next month, the Imagination Library will keep giving out books. And the following month, there is infrastructure in place. The relationships for funding are dispersed. The affiliate network is up and running. What shifts is the gravitational pull, the unique power of Dolly Parton's credibility and personal presence that could enter a room, tell a tale about a young child growing up in a one-room cabin in the Smoky Mountains without books and leave with a check that could support 10,000 children for a year. It is an invaluable power. No board of directors, no matter how skilled, can match the fundraising power of a woman who was both a credible witness to the issue she was attempting to solve and one of the most adored performers in American history. The foundation must now create a new model for that gravitational pull, an institutional identity powerful enough to draw significant donors on its own merits without Dolly Parton's presence, carefully, thoughtfully, and without haste. The books will continue to come in. The question is whether the program keeps growing at the same rate as it did during her lifetime, or if it reaches a plateau at its current size, continuing but not growing. There are currently 308 million books. Everyone who has ever received one now has the power to determine whether that number keeps rising. Dolly Parton didn't slow down. When you follow the trajectory of her latter years, that is the detail that keeps coming up. A lady accelerating, adding building, signing, and launching, rather than winding down toward a tranquil retirement. It was as though she knew at a level that didn't need to be expressed that the window for new ventures was closing, and that rapidity rather than caution was the appropriate reaction. The only thing she was mistaken about was her belief that she would be present to witness everything. In terms of scope and ambition, the Broadway musical took the lead. In 2025, Dolly, a truly original musical that she co-wrote and contributed original music to, had its world premiere in Nashville. Production businesses have been hoping for this kind of response for decades. Critics who were apprehensive about a musical centered around a living legend and situated next to a jukebox ended up writing about something that felt more theatrical than joyous. The run in Nashville sold out. Word got out. December 2026 was the planned start date for Broadway previews. 4 months before the curtain was set to rise on the production that Dolly Parton had spent years trying to develop, she passed away in August 2026. The production will continue. The individuals responsible in bringing it to the stage have already attested to that. Because its subject dies before opening night, a Broadway musical with a sold-out world premiere, a built-in worldwide following, and enough unique content to support a full theatrical run does not fold. If anything, the history of theatrical shows associated with cherished artists indicates that an audience's grief, when well directed, can elevate a powerful performance into a cultural icon. No amount of advance publicity could have created the weight that the first Broadway production of Dolly, a truly original musical, will carry. It will be brought by the audience. The tale of the Songteller Hotel is more intricate. At the time of her passing, the project, a hotel and museum experience in Nashville, was in the advanced stages of planning. It was based on the idea that Dolly Parton was a songwriter and storyteller, rather than just a famous person. The project's specifics had been made public. There were renderings. There were partners. However, in the days since her death, the exact construction status, the finance arrangement, and the opening date have not been established. All that is known is that the project had progressed much beyond the concept stage because the plans were adequately developed. The people in charge of the development agreements are currently making decisions about whether it will open on its original schedule, on a revised schedule, or undergo major changes in response to her passing. It is not a decreased proposition for a hotel based on Dolly Parton's life story to open in the months or years following her passing. In certain respects, it is more powerful. The music history and living mythology of American country culture have made Nashville one of the most popular tourist destinations in the country, drawing millions of visitors each year. For that audience, a permanent immersive monument to the lady who could be the most adored character in culture's history is not difficult to sell. In a different category is the Duncan Hines Partnership, a range of baked goods bearing her name and style that was launched in 2024. Such consumer goods licensing contracts are usually designed to endure the licensor's passing. When Dolly Parton passes away, the brand value of her name on a package of cornbread mix does not decrease. It rises in some markets and among some groups, regardless of the trust or corporate structure that now governs the commercial use of her name, image, and likeness. The licensing estate will continue to make money from existing contracts and might even draw in new ones. Additionally, there were ongoing Dollywood expansion projects. Park that hasn't stopped growing since the 1980s features fresh infrastructure investments, resort phases, and attractions. These initiatives are part of a corporate framework that doesn't need her direct consent to move on. Both Hirschand and the Dollywood Company have their own building schedules, capital allocation procedures, and future plans for the park. The emotional terrain of those choices is altered by Dolly's passing. The business logic remains unchanged. She created things that will outlive her, each and every one of them. That is not an accident. That is what occurs when someone carefully considers the distinction between a career and a legacy for decades before making the intentional decision to invest in the latter, even while the former is still very lucrative. Her unfinished work will be completed. Her unfinished initiatives will continue. The particular attention to detail she gave to everything she touched is what she was unable to leave behind, and what no corporate partnership agreement, trust arrangement, or estate paperwork can duplicate. There was no brand associated with the warmth. She was the one. And the only thing she leaves behind that cannot be inherited is that. Brian Seaver had anticipated this moment. Not in the abstract sense that everyone who loves someone knows that the time will come somewhere beneath the surface of everyday existence. In particular, Brian Seaver had known. Specifically, because Dolly Parton had questioned him years before it actually occurred, years before any of them were prepared to accept it as a genuine and imminent reality. To be the one to inform everyone of her passing. He is her sister Cassie Parton's son, making him her nephew. Additionally, he held the position of Chief of Security for more than 20 years, a position previously occupied by his own father, Larry Seaver. Dolly Parton stood silently between two generations of the same family, and a society that, had she allowed, it would have engulfed her. This is what he stated when he recorded the announcement. Dolly requested me to make this video announcement years ago before I completely accepted it as a reality for the future. My father, Larry, served as her head of security for over 20 years. I haven't really felt the weight of this moment until now, but I have imagined it. Go back and read that slowly. Years ago, she asked him, just as she had planned the Imagination Library, she also prepared the announcement of her own demise. She organized the Broadway show in the same manner. Every project she worked on was planned in the same manner, carefully, strategically, and with a strong understanding of who was most suited for the position. That was not a moment she let happen by accident. She didn't entrust it to a management firm, a record label, or a publicist. She trusted a guy who had dedicated his adult life to ensuring her safety. A man whose father had followed in his footsteps. A man who loved her did so as family loves family. Not as a fan, loves an idol. With complete awareness of the performer, Dolly Parton would have recognized Brian Seaver's final remarks as wholly original. The doors she opened created and altered history, and she never saw a door that she couldn't open. We thought everything was possible because of her example. There was never a door that she was unable to open. That sums up 8 decades on our planet. Not the awards, even though there were enough of them to occupy multiple rooms. Not the recordings, despite the fact that she composed over 5,000 songs and recorded enough of them to last a lifetime. Not the net worth, but $450 million is a level of accumulation that very few musicians in American music history have ever attained. Finally, the point is none of that. The doors are the key. The door she opened for a young child born in a one-room cabin in Locust Ridge, Tennessee, who, according to conventional accounting, had no reason to think that anything in the world beyond those mountains belonged to her, because she made the decision decades ago that literacy was a right rather than a privilege, and that she had the means and the responsibility to act on that belief. She opened the door for 4 million children annually in 5 nations to get a book every month. The door she opened for 4,000 workers at Pigeon Forge, where her name and ideals are displayed on every wall. She opened the door to the Broadway stage as an 80-year-old legend with just one more tale to share, rather than as a young woman seeking approval. She bequeathed it to everyone because she had no children to leave it to. The next shipment of books from the Imagination Library will arrive on time. Tomorrow morning, Dollywood will open its doors. In December, the Broadway musical will open. When it opens, the Songteller Hotel will be open. Grocery store shelves will hold the Duncan Hines merchandise. The songs, roughly 5,000 of them, will continue to play across all platforms, both current and future. She doesn't need to be here for any of it. That was the strategy. That was the original plan. Write a tribute to Dolly Parton in the comments section below if the Imagination Library has ever placed a book in your hands or in the hands of a child you care about. Share this video with someone who has never heard of the program if you think that what she created deserves to continue expanding, that 308 million books should increase to 400 million, then 500 million. Because holding a door open yourself is the greatest homage to a woman who dedicated her life to doing so. If you haven't already, subscribe. This is not the end of the narrative.